Welcome back, viewers. Dave Epstein here from the Post Pollock channel. Here today to talk to you about one of my favorite objects and also some legal issues. We're talking about, of course, the Shillelagh. Now, this is a slightly older video, but when I saw it, I stumbled upon it. I said, I have to play this one. You watch for yourself. You're going to like this.
Dan Donovan has a new appreciation for his family's Shillelagh. The Irish walking stick was his grandfather's and dates back to the 1800s. Donovan admits there was no designated place in the home for the heirloom, but 2 weeks ago, it was just where he needed it and grabbed it to chase off some burglars.
Grandpa was looking over us, so everything turned out okay. We think what could have happened.
The couple was sitting down to dinner when a man posing as a utility worker came to their Niles home, asking to check their fuse box due to a recent fire in the area. While Dan was downstairs with the man, Barbara grew suspicious when she heard noises. Turns out, two other intruders got in the house. One had a pillowcase.
I yelled out, Danny, there's somebody in our bedroom. The floor was squeaking, and he came running, and the guy was after him, and I didn't even know he grabbed the Shillelagh.
Donovan, a former Marine, was still barefoot when he chased them outside. The 81-year-old hit one of them in the head before all three suspects got in a car and drove away.
We were backing up at high speed, so I hit the windshield, and I hit the hood on the way out, and I was chasing them down the street.
The Donovans consider themselves pretty street smart and would normally not have let the person in their house. But the day before, they received a letter from their electric company saying utility crews would be working in the area.
If there's someone knocking at your door claiming to be from a utility company, is to, of course, verify their employer. You can call the main line. You can call any local police department to verify any services that are in the area.
Barbara considers Dan a hero, but Dan gives all the credit to Barbara.
If it wasn't for her, I would have been helping the guy in the car and waiting to buy one.
Karen Jordan, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Well, there you have it, folks, the Donovans and their Shillelagh. Well, first I'll start with a public service safety announcement. You heard what the officer said. When people come to your house, especially seniors, do not just open okay, all these scam artists, all these robbers, they come up with very clever ruses to get into your home. Always verify who's at your door and keep 911 on speed dial if you have to. Do not let people in your home. Now, what are your rights in your home, in your castle? Well, it partially, in some degree, depends on what state you're in. In New Jersey, which is very restrictive, we have probably some of the more strict gun control laws in the country, and we have what's called the duty to retreat, meaning as long as you can retreat safely, you're not allowed to go assault somebody or use force, use deadly force, use brute force, however you want to describe it. That has its limits. However, and I mentioned your castle, there is still the castle doctrine, and that you are allowed to defend your castle within reason, and that means your home. So if somebody's in your home and they won't leave, or they've snuck up on you, you are allowed to use whatever force you think is necessary to protect yourself and your family and your home. And that usually applies even if they are not armed. There is a man in your house who is a woman sometimes who's intruded on your house. They've come in by force or by false pretenses. You are allowed to use force. Even in some instances, and even in New Jersey, a firearm. Now, you have to keep in mind if you're, for example, in a duty to retreat state. If the person who came into the home, you pull out your Shillelagh and you start wailing on them with your Shillelagh and they run, technically you're supposed to retreat. Not retreat. You can stop hitting them because you're no longer in danger. In fact, my friend Mr. Donovan here, if you got somebody who really had a thing about this duty to retreat, they could probably go after him for chasing the guy out of the house and hitting the guy's car and charge him with vandalism. Good luck with that, Mr. Prosecutor. I don't think there's a prosecutor, any sane prosecutor, would prosecute this old man. You don't want to put me on that jury. And anyone's going to give this guy a free pass, even a young person who does that, because they had an intruder in their home. And even if technically they were no longer in danger and they continued to attack and then it becomes vindictive, nobody is going to fault you because you had a burglar or an intruder or somebody who finagled their way into your home, and that's that. You're not going to be prosecuted. But if, for example, you're using a gun and some guy puts his hands up and starts to walk to the door, says, I'm out of here, and you shoot him, even in a stand your ground state, that's the states, we've talked about this concept in the past in some of my videos, where you're allowed to stand your ground. Unlike New Jersey, some states have stand your ground. You can stand your ground and fight, do whatever it takes to protect yourself, and that can include use of deadly force like firearms, knives, or I tell you what, a shillelagh can put a bad hurting on somebody. You could even kill somebody with it. Obviously, each case turns on its own merits, its own facts. And again, this guy, nobody's going to touch him. Probably if you're using something like a club, a shillelagh, nobody's going to touch you. Now, technically under New Jersey law, a shillelagh or a club or a billy club, they'd call it a billy club, is illegal, period. You're not supposed to have it in your home. However, there was a Supreme Court, I believe it was a Supreme Court case, might have been an appellate division case years ago, that said that you are allowed to keep arms under the Constitution. The state tried to argue, well, that only had guns in mind, and that, which made no sense. So you're allowed to keep guns, but not a stick. And it's funny because even a kitchen knife can be a deadly weapon. Now, you're not allowed to walk around with it. Again, depends on the state. In many states, you are allowed concealed carry, open carry with a knife, with a gun. You can even carry a club. If you can claim some use for it, you can walk around with a stick. I wouldn't recommend it unless you really need it. Now, that's where these shillelaghs come in. I'll give you a little brief history. They were used, some are like this, the club. You may have seen me. They have the long walking sticks. They were used by the Irish. There's a lot of history, some debated, but at one point they were used both as a walking aid, but more importantly as a weapon. The English outlawed, prohibited Irish, when they controlled Ireland, Irish people from holding weapons. You got a walking stick. What are they going to say? Listen, I have a bad leg. I need this to walk. Now, they picked some of the hardest woods they could find. One was oak. I believe they originally used oak, and the English had a liking to oak, so they took a lot of that out of there. They were clear-cutting oak forests. So then they looked around and they went to the blackthorn. This one happens to be made of blackthorn. I've made a bunch that aren't. And blackthorn is one of the hardest woods on earth. It's a very dense, hard wood. It's also in Celtic lore and ancient, actually all over Europe, it's believed to have magical powers and so on and so forth. So it was a natural. And they harden these things, and when they make them in Ireland, I mean, some of them, what they would do is drill a hole in the end of it and inject molten lead, which, as you can imagine, carries quite a punch. Now, if you're caught carrying something like that and claim it's a walking stick, no. If you have a cane, they've made canes that have spikes or knives that come out of the bottom. No, that's not going to work. In fact, in New Jersey, the restrictive laws prevent you from having weapons that are disguised as something else. A pen that turns into a knife or different things like that. But when it comes to your home, you're allowed to keep these things within reason. I think switchblades are illegal even if you have them in your home and never take them out. You're allowed to bear arms in your home, even in New Jersey. Just probably don't walk around with them. I have these as a prop for my video, but if I'm walking around the street with it and I'm not shooting a video, which is not where I shoot my videos, I could be arrested just for having it. So please, folks, be careful. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed meeting Mr. Donovan, because I happen to love the guy, and my tiny little history lesson about the shillelagh. Please, if you like this video, hit like. Please subscribe if you like our channel. And please leave your comments. We love to read them. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Dave Epstein signing off for the Post Pollock firm.